There are 7 levels of business ownership, and less than 1% of people ever make it past level 4. And in this video, I'm gonna break down what each level is, what it takes to get to the next level, and how you can progress through this as fast as possible. Now, I've been building businesses for 17 years. I built 2 companies with over $200 million in sales each, and I've helped people sell billions of dollars. And in this process, I've learned something shocking that nobody talks about when it comes to progressing quickly through these levels. And we'll talk about it as soon as we get to level 3. So the first level is a huge trap. A lot of big companies whose only goal is to make themselves more money, and the people that own it and the CEO and everyone high up in the company, they trap people into thinking that could otherwise go out there and build their businesses, that they're technically entrepreneurs within the large corporation, which is complete nonsense. Because if you're an employee, you are not an entrepreneur unless you're building something on the side. If you're an employee, your entire livelihood is based on that company giving you a paycheck every single month. Now, your standard employee is not really taking any initiative. They're just kind of coasting through their life. But this first level, which we will call an intrapreneur, this person is taking some initiative within a larger company, but they're not running anything. They're not really taking a lot of risks. They're still just collecting their paycheck. They're putting money into their 401k. And then hopefully one day they can retire at 65 when their knees hurt and they can't do anything. And so this is the first level of business ownership, which is being an entrepreneur. At this stage, you may own a tiny piece of the company. Maybe you get a little bit of stake. Maybe you're in a startup and you get some equity. Crazy thing about startups, even if you have equity and you're an entrepreneur within a startup, is that like 80% of equity in startups ends up going to zero. And so even though you think you have something, you really have nothing. And which is why it's time to go to the next level. So the next level gives you the freedom to live anywhere you want, to even work on your own schedule. And you can start achieving this next level in literally the next 24 hours. In a couple hours, you could actually achieve this next level. And so the problem with being here is you have no freedom. You basically have to show up to your job when they tell you, how they tell you, do what they tell you, and that's your entire livelihood. At the next level, you get to choose what you do, when you do it, how you do it. And in most cases, people are still employees or entrepreneurs when they start pursuing this next level, which is being a freelancer. So you can take any skill set you have. Maybe whatever you're doing for your company is a skill set. That could be doing something logistic related. It could be doing graphic design. It could be doing programming. It could be doing marketing. It could be doing finance, accounting, bookkeeping, literally anything that you would do for a company, you can do as a freelancer. You can go to a site such as Upwork.com and start freelancing for other businesses. So now you have money coming in that's not dependent on the paycheck from a job. So that's the next level. The problem with this level is you're not building any equity. You're not building an asset worth anything. Instead, you're just putting in hours and trading your time for money. So as soon as you stop working, your money stops coming in. So you're not yet a business owner, which is why we need to pursue the next level as quickly as possible. Whereas a lot of people spend far too much time here, but you got to quickly start making it up to this next level. So this next level is how all the richest people in the world built their wealth. And 9 times out of 10, 19 times out of 20, that's the case. And so, like we said, the problem down here is you're not building any equity. You're not building any assets that are worth something beyond the hours that you're putting in. Once you get to this next level, you're building something that can live and die without you eventually. Most importantly, you're not just collecting a paycheck, but you're building an asset from scratch that can eventually be sold if you want to. And that's when your entire wealth portfolio changes. And so this level is small business owner. So there are millions of these in the United States alone. These are people out there with maybe just one employee or a handful of employees that are out there grinding away, building their businesses. And this is the next step that you want to get to, because this is how you start building an actual company beyond just freelancing. Like, you could be doing graphic design and making, say, $100 an hour or something, or you can own a business that employs graphic designers. And then now you're profiting from all of those people working with you. You start building up systems and processes and people. And now you have a graphic design agency that is actually worth something. So maybe you're still making, 10, 20 grand a month or something, but now you're building a business that can eventually be sold for millions of dollars. So it's at this level where you realize that the key to moving up higher in the 7 levels of business ownership is not more work, it's not more time, it's a better strategy. So as a freelancer, you may do the same exact work you do as a business owner, graphic design, accounting, whatever, but you have a better strategy, and then you're not just trading time for money, You're building a company that other people can do this work without you. That's the key to this whole chart. Better strategy, because we don't get all more time. You take somebody that's a billionaire, they've got the same 24 hours in a day as somebody who's flat broke. And so it can't be about more time. It can't even be about more effort. There's only so many work hours in a week. It has to be about more strategy. And this next strategy is what transforms your entire life. So at this level, there's something like 95% of businesses get stuck here. They're just a tiny little business, maybe doing a couple $100,000 a year in revenue, and they never really get out. It's like your gas station, or it's your dry cleaners, or other little local businesses, or tiny little accounting offices. It's these companies that never really get anywhere. And so they haven't found a repeatable system to scale up into the next level, which is being I'm just gonna put FT as an acronym, but full-time business owner. And this is also more or less around the $1 million plus mark. So it's at this level that this business can support you comfortably, and you no longer have to worry about having a job or doing freelancing or any of that kind of stuff. So as a full-time business owner doing at least $1 million a year, you probably have enough profit, because even if your profit is on the low end, say 10%, you're still making $100,000 a year from this business that can live and breathe, at least in little bits of time, without you. At this level, you're barely making enough profit. So you're probably doing side hustles and worried about money and all that kind of stuff. As a full-time business owner, you've got more freedom, and you can actually go out there and start looking at scaling up the next level. But now you've done something that 95% of people never get to, because a lot of people build businesses, not many of them get to $1 million plus, but you're still not free. And this is one of the biggest opportunities that I coach people through personally, because I work with a lot of 7-figure business owners that are at, say, the $1 to $5 million mark, but they're still feeling a lot of pressure. They're not able to go and do whatever they want with their lives, because they're still the person that's running their entire company. So I built multiple businesses to over $10 million a year in sales each. I'm not the CEO of any of these businesses. So I've created a special resource that I call the replacement protocol that walks you through the 5 levers of going through full-time business owner to completely free to do whatever you want, because you've got other people running your business. And it's all 100% free. Get it below. It's called the replacement protocol. So the problem with this level is you get stuck. So many business owners never make it past the low 7 figures mark. They end up basically just selling their business for a few $1 million, and they have to go build another business, and they're never really free. It's at the next level where your whole life transforms. This is where you build legacy money. This is where you can build a business that runs without you. But you have to keep grinding and hustling to get past this level, to get to this level, because this is where your real freedom actually starts. This level is at the $10 million plus mark, and this is what I will call an established business owner. So established business owner, which more or less, sometimes this can happen sooner, but more or less is at the $10 million plus mark. There's some magic that happens when you get a business to doing at least $10 million a year in annual revenue. Things just feel a lot simpler. They feel a lot more consistent, a lot more predictable. Here, it feels like the smallest change you could wake up to tomorrow and your business go to zero. It's very anxiety producing at this level, but once you get here, you're like, okay, I've been in this game for a while. I've got customers coming in from multiple sources. I've got established products. I've got a lot of reviews. I've got a team that's been with me for a while. Life is so much better when you get to this level. Also, the magic at this level is you've got enough revenue, which can produce enough profit. Even if you're doing only 10% a year in profit, that's $1 million a year. That gives you enough money to pay yourself well, to have a cash cushion, and also to be able to hire some really high-level people that can run your business for you. Because you don't have to run the business yourself for the rest of your life. But you got to get at least to some level of scale, because if you try to do that here, you're either going to burn all your cash, or you're not going to be able to hire anybody that's any good. So you have to get to this level where you have the cash flow and consistency to be able to pay and hire good people without feeling like your personal income is going to go to zero. Now, once you get to here, even business owners that do, I even see some that are doing, $30, $40, $50 million a year, and they're still stressed out. And they're wondering what's going on. Because there's another level that most businesses, even ones that get to $10 million, which this is less than 1%, even ones that get to this level never get here because they don't even think it's possible. They think that okay, I'm doing 10, 20, $30 million a year. My only options are either run this thing till I get bored or until I die or till it goes to zero, because things can always happen, or I got to sell it at some point. There's another option, because the market may not always be good to sell your business. I've been through this personally. Tried to sell a business when it was the worst time in history to sell that kind of business, and we got a lot of offers, but none of them were that exciting. And so we're just gonna wait. And so if your only option is like, oh man, I gotta run this thing for another 5 years, or I can hopefully just sell it now for a tiny amount of money, those are not two great options. There is another option, and you become a non-operating owner. So this is where you hire somebody to run the business for you. This is where a lot of people think it's just not possible. But what they don't realize is the CEO job of a company is just a job. Just like a customer service employee, just like a finance employee, it's just another job that you can hire for. Sure, it's a higher level job, you want people that are more experienced, et cetera, but it's still just a job you can recruit for. There was nothing magical about you being CEO of your company until you just did it for a long time. You can hire somebody who's probably better than you at running businesses. All you have to do is pay them like any other employee. You got to pay them a salary, you got to pay them some sort of bonus structure, and pay them something because of the nature of their job that they win when the company wins, because they're basically responsible for the overall P&L and revenue growth of the company. So you want to give them some sort of compensation based on the profitability of the business, which doesn't have to be actual equity, but some equity-like compensation. So if the whole business does well, they do well, and that means you as the owner, you do well. So you become a non-operating owner. Your only job, you can call yourself the chairman of the board. So your only job is to manage the CEO. If the CEO does great, you do nothing. If the CEO does bad, you replace the CEO. That's your entire job. You've got no other job at this point, and that's when you can literally do anything you want with your time, because this person is now running your whole company for you. The first person you hire for this job, just like any employee, maybe not gonna work out. There's a good chance he or she is not gonna work out. So what do? You don't be like, oh, I'm the only person who can ever run this business. You do the same thing you did way back here when you were hiring your very first employee. If that person doesn't work out, you find another one. Do the same thing up here. If you're the non-operating owner and the CEO to run your business doesn't work out, you find another one. And that's how you keep moving up this chart, and that's how you stay at this level and never drop back down. So it's at this level where some business owners make the biggest mistake of their lives. They've spent years, in most cases decades, gaining lots of experience because they've had to work themselves all the way through these levels, from building something from nothing, struggles, hiring people, figuring out marketing and product and all that kind of stuff. And they finally reach this level of not only building an 8-figure plus business, some cases 9-figure business, but also becoming a business that can hire a CEO to run that company for them. But what do some of these people do? Well, I once had a mentor that I worked with for 4 years. He had taken a company public in his 20s, and he made a bunch of money. He's like, all right, good, I don't need to work anymore. And so he ended up moving to Sarasota, Florida to play golf because he loved playing golf. But he left after just a few years because what he found out is there were a lot of other, mostly older, retired people living in Sarasota, Florida, also playing golf all the time, but they were drinking all the time also. A lot of them were basically alcoholics, and they were miserable and depressed because they lost their purpose in life. They had spent all this time gaining all this experience, and because of their decision at this level, they ended up making themselves basically useless to society, useless to the other people around them. Why not take all of this experience and keep going? Because at this point, life can be so much fun. And so you become what I think are the best entrepreneurs in the world. They become holding company owners, which is just a fancy way of saying they do multiple of this level. So they have multiple businesses where they're not the CEO, and they're able to do basically an infinite number of these. Think of like a Richard Branson, which is a different flavor than like a Warren Buffett. So Richard Branson built some businesses, did very well. He ended up basically licensing his brand name so he could apply a little bit of branding sort of magic to some of these companies, but he basically doesn't have to run any of them, and is worth billions of dollars. Then there's Warren Buffett, who's very good at investing in capital allocation, deciding where to put money that these businesses generate. He's used that skill set as opposed to Richard Branson's branding skill set, and he owns 60 plus businesses that are all multi-billion-dollar companies. He runs 0 of them. He sits at his office, he's been doing it for decades in Omaha, Nebraska, reads annual reports, talks to a few people on the phone. That's his entire job. Some of these companies that he's bought for billions of dollars, he's literally never even visited, and they're manufacturing products. Didn't check them out, just made the deal on a phone call. He's like, here's your $5 billion. Don't call me unless there's a problem. That's his entire job. So at this point, you can keep adding value to society, you can keep growing your wealth, you can keep inspiring and helping other people. So this to me is the pinnacle of business ownership, is to become a holding company owner. So each one of these levels requires an identity shift. And most people never make it past level 4 because they're missing one critical skill. And I break down exactly what that skill is and how to acquire and master it in this next video, so go watch it now.